Today, on the Exploring Author YouTube channel, we explore a legend that includes a knight, gambling and drinking, a wife who was once loving but is now scorned, a duel to the death, and the monastery you see right behind me. So what fantastical story could be associated with so many random topics? We're going to find out as we continue my series, Legends of the Rhine. Standing outside of Marienberg Cloister, or Marienberg Monastery, in the beautiful town of Boppard, Germany, along the famous Rhine River. Now, the history alone is worth the visit to this beautiful structure, albeit it is abandoned and you can't even go inside it right now, which is why we're on the outside. But that is not why I'm here. I'm truly here because there's an incredible legend associated with this building. All right, I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm also here with my producers for a glass of wine or two or three, because this is also an incredible wine region within Germany. If you're already subscribed to the channel, you know the drill. We're gonna delve into the history first, and then we're gonna get on to the legend, which is probably why you clicked on this video to begin with. So let's get this thing kicked off with the history of Marienberg Monastery. Built in the year 1120, this monastery in Boppard, Germany was formerly a Benedictine monastery. In the early 13th century, due to increased donations, the construction of the chapel began and the monastery began to be a place of burials for local nobility. It went through some changes in the 15th century, which actually converted it to Marienberg Benedictine Abbey, and it had an abbess on site. The monastery survived the incredibly difficult economic times of the 16th century. Unfortunately, as is the case in much of the area, it could not survive the 30 Years' War unscathed, and was damaged both in 1632 and 1646. The 16th and 17th century in Germany were pretty rough in general, so it really is quite common to see some negative impact to towns and structures at that time. A lot of beautification of the monastery took place from 1695 until 1736, which seemed like a sign of great things to come, right? Yeah, except it wasn't, as in 1738, a fire swept through and destroyed most of the monastery. The monastery was under construction and was rebuilt for many years. Then the French army occupied it from 1794 until it was dissolved as a monastery in 1802. After that, it changed hands many times and was of all things a girls' boarding school, a few different times, a cotton mill, a military hospital during World War I, and even a cold water spa. All right, obviously, that was a lot of history I just threw at you, and this site has a lot more. I really tried to summarize it at a high level as best as possible. And what you see right behind me right now is the cloister, or the monastery, and the park that is right behind it. We're a little bit off a trail because the site, as I said earlier, is abandoned and we can't go inside of it. So as you learned, the site, according to historians, was founded by a group of citizens in the 12th century and not by one person, right? But what the legend is going to tell us is quite a bit different tale of how the monastery came to be and why it's called St. Marienberg. So let's sit back and listen and find out what the tale has to offer us. Legend says that during the famous Crusades, many Boppard knights were off fighting, but one knight had the task to protect the city, and his name was Conrad. Early on, he was enjoying his life as protector of Boppard, and even married a beautiful lady named Maria. Crusades were infamous for knights having tales of glory and gaining many riches. This was not the case for Conrad. To deal with his envy, he began to drink and gamble in excess. His wife was often left alone for weeks at a time. She finally wrote a letter to him, and he quickly replied to let her know that married life wasn't quite his cup of tea. Now, of course, Maria was not exactly happy with this response, and she swore to take revenge against her drunk, gambling addict husband. The next day, while Conrad was wandering aimlessly through the forest, he came upon a black knight. The black knight was quite bold and challenged Conrad to a fight due to Conrad's severe neglect and lack of attention or care paid to his beautiful wife, Maria. The black knight shouted at Conrad, "One of us will die today." They both drew their swords, but the fight was shorter than a schoolyard playground fight. Within moments, Conrad had vanquished the Black Knight. Curious to see who he had defeated, Conrad took the Black Knight's helmet off, only to find that it was Maria. With her last dying words, she said, I wanted to die from your hand." Conrad was devastated and prayed to reverse the death of his beautiful wife. Maria's body was taken to his castle, and he made plans for a monastery to be built in her honor, St. Marienberg Monastery. He then chased after glory and riches, but alas, simply died in battle in the Holy Land as a crusader. All right, that was quite a tale. But I'm going to be honest with you because the historical records in this particular instance at this monastery are quite detailed. So it's safe to say that if you want to know the true history of this place, the legend is not really the one to go with. But it's the uniqueness of the legend that brings such an interesting aspect to the places we're visiting, such as this monastery. And often is the case, the historical records are not as detailed as they are here today. So what you start to see is a component where the legend starts to bleed into the real history. Because at times, even the history, you don't know anything about it, so we start with the legend. So as you've heard me say before, the legends and the folk tales, the folklore, they're a great way to start to learn about the places that we visit, and even sometimes find the places we want to visit. Until next time, adventurers, adventure awaits. So let's go home. That's why I like filming on Sundays when everybody's home. Oh yeah. But I'm going to be honest with you. What am I going to be honest about? But the legend takes a little bit different take on how we're going about.
Sorry.
I should be able to play through it. I did it in Berlin. I should be okay.